Let's learn how to use editable vector artwork in t-shirt mockups using Illustrator and Photoshop in this simple tutorial. First things first, open your t-shirt mockup image in Photoshop and make a selection around the t-shirt. To do this, use Command and Control plus or minus to zoom in or out. Use H for hand tool to scroll to different parts of the t-shirt when you're zoomed in. Come over to your quick selection tool. Use open brackets and close brackets to make the brush larger or smaller to capture more or less of the selection. And to add to your selection, simply click and drag and remove from your selection by holding Alt or Option and then clicking and dragging over. So I'm going to go ahead and make my t-shirt selection and I'll be back with you shortly. Once you've made your selection, come up to Select and Mask. In Properties, we can see the masked area by selecting a contrasting color, so I'll go with red, indicates masked areas, and turn up the opacity to 100%. And from here now, if I Command or Control plus to zoom in, we can further refine this mask using the plus and minus brush here, and also options in edge detection and global refinement. So we can smooth our selection, we can feather it, and so on and so forth. So again, go forward and refine your mask using these options. So make your further refinement adjustments, and then in output settings, set decontaminate colors and set output to new layer with layer mask. And from there, click OK. Now let's check on this background layer and zoom out. And you can see now this background copy layer, our layer mask, is going to act as our clipping mask for our vector artwork. So from there, come into Illustrator. So here in Illustrator, I have an AI file with some vector artwork. I have a series of grouped dog graphics that are in a clipping mask, as you can see here, if I just release it. And I've got a background color here. So with my selection tool, let's click and drag over everything I want to import into Photoshop and just Command and Control C to copy it. Then come into Photoshop, make sure I've got my clipping mask layer selected, Command or Control V to paste, and I'm going to paste this as a smart object. And you can decide whether to add this to your library or not. It's entirely up to you. Check that off and press OK. There is my vector artwork. So let's just click and drag it over, maybe scale it up a touch, and press Enter. And from there, with the vector smart object, right click, make sure it's on top of the background copy layer, right click, create clipping mask, and this now clips into the cutout t-shirt shape in the mask. With the layer selected, set your blend mode to something like multiply or color burn to bring through the textures of the t-shirt, and right click blending options, and on blending options under the blend if panel, both with current layer and underlying layer, we can bring through those darker tones and those lighter tones by hovering over the sliders, holding Alt or Option to separate them, and playing around with these sliders to try to bring through more of the lighting, both on the underlying layer, and you can also try this on the current layer as well. Once happy, click OK. And at any time using selection tool, you can click and drag and move this pattern around, and you can also scale it as well and press Enter once you're done. When you're ready to make changes to the vector artwork, select the layer, select this little smart object icon here to double click. That will take you back into Illustrator. And now we can edit the vector smart object in Illustrator. So for example, let's just make some quick changes. You can do absolutely anything, but I'm just going to change this background color. So let's just change this to a lighter pink, and let's just flip this artwork. So object transform reflect 90 degrees. Let's just put this back in line with the background. Once you've made changes in the vector smart object, Command or Control S to save. And once you've saved, if you come back into Photoshop, there you go, your changes will then be saved. As long as this layer stays vector smart object, you continue to go back into Illustrator and make as many changes as you like. The great thing is then about this being a mask is that you can continue to make changes. So if I Command or Control plus to zoom in, you can see here I've still got some white. So select my mask, not the image, select the mask layer, grab my paintbrush tool, set a soft round brush, turn my opacity down, and then select white to remove from the mask, and select black to add back to the mask. So I can continue to refine this mask as much as I want using the masking options in that layer. One final thing to bear in mind, when using a vector smart object layer, you won't be able to use certain transform tools like warp, distort, split, and a few others. So if you do want to use, say, the warp tool, you are going to need to right click and rasterize layer, but unfortunately then you are going to use the Vector Smart Object editable capabilities. So just bear that in mind. With this technique, certain warp tools and transform tools will not be available to you. And there you have it, fully editable vector artwork on t-shirt mockups using an Illustrator Photoshop workflow. I really hope you found this helpful, and if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, keep on designing, and I will see you for the next tutorial.